Yes, sir. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Lachansky. I'm the Services Division Lead within ACM NS.
Hey, good morning. Major Kyle Hudala. I'm the branch chief for the Line of Sight Plus capabilities. It includes transport as well as the public safety communications under my portfolio.
Okay, mic's working now. All right. So, hey, I'll give you just a quick second to look over the agenda. What we're really going to talk about today is we're going to cover a couple of programs. I'm going to cover UNO, not in any great depth. The reason is last year at this forum we briefed UNO, at least John Long did. We've had 8 or 9 technical exchange meetings at this point where we've talked about UNO, so I think we know it pretty well. I've got some pretty interesting stuff here to cover, so I won't spend much time on it. Andy will be covering ICAM, which is part of UNO. Kyle will be covering enterprise technology modernization or transport modernization. And then I'm going to go through a strategy that my team and I have worked on for quite a while, 6 to 8 months now. And I'll talk about that strategy. I'll talk about why it was necessary for us. Okay, so UNO. Hey, one thing I want to start with is I think we're getting more aware of this, but I still hear it from time to time. Conflating the word UNO, Unified Network Operations, with UN, Unified Network. They are not the same thing. UNO is strictly the command and control element for Unified Network or for the Unified Network. So I just wanted to make sure we were all tracking that. So you'll see here what I really want to focus in on a little bit here is where we're at with document development and the overall purpose for why UNO is coming into existence. Security being paramount, but reducing complexity. We've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 or so tools on the network today. That's really challenging for the S6s and G6s of the world to manage a network when they've got all the equipment they have, plus all these ways to try to get after it. So, starting at the bottom right-hand corner, slide number 1, that's lower tactical tier. That's really focused more on your radios and how we design and operate those radio networks. That right now is very close. I expect next month we'll have that document approved and ready to start actioning. Number 2, that's the upper tactical tier. So that's really focused more on your upper TI up to the regional hub node. We've got that document. It's ready. Waiting a couple more signatures to get it into the Army staffing process. Number 3 is ICAM. I think we've done a great job on getting ICAM together and looking at how it works with the distance solution that we have. And it also is probably, I would say, 4 to 5 months from being approved. Data Fabric, that's number 4 in the center there. So that's going to take us a little bit longer. There's a lot of data fabrics out there. We really want to take time to evaluate how those are working. And so we're going to leverage the multiple exercises, one really large one here coming up over the next 3 to 5 months and see, hey, what's right for data fabric for the Army, because trying to take on a data fabric for the entire unified network, it's a pretty big task, and we want to make sure we get it right. 5 and 6, that's your strategic and installation RDPs, and they are in a very nascent stage at this point of being prepared. Hey, and so one thing I wanted to try to bring into this, I don't want to sit here and brief the whole time and then wait and have 2 or 3 minutes to get questions, because what I'm here to do, I talk to government folks a lot. I'm really here to talk to the industry folks, and I want to get your feedback. I want to get your comments. So if you have a question as we're going through this, I'm not necessarily going to ask for it after every slide, but please raise your hand and ask the question then. Please do not wait until the end and ask me once we're done. I'd really appreciate it if you could just engage with me and interact with me as we're going through this. It'll make it a lot funner, actually. Okay, on to the next slide. Andy.
Thanks, sir. So we wanted to take a little time to dive into at least one of the RDPs of UNO, and for this we chose ICAM. So yesterday we heard from a number of senior leaders who talked about the critical role of data in the future fight by enabling our commanders to make the data-driven decisions at the speed of relevance, critical to underpinning that shift to a data-centric mindset, as well as a multitude of other unified network priorities, is a foundational ICAM solution that allows the right people to see the right data at the right time. As such, this RDP provides the requirements to establish a comprehensive ICAM solution that spans the entirety of the unified network. Today, a number of different organizations provide ICAM solutions across the Army for specific purposes, but not necessarily in concert with each other. This document is intended to break down those barriers and unify the Army ICAM efforts into a singular ICAM solution capable of supporting the warfighter's authentication and authorization needs from foxhole to flagpole. As Lieutenant General Gervais said yesterday, this document will get the back end fixed and bring simplicity to the edge. The eventual approval of this document is just the start. The execution of these requirements across 2 different PEOs is going to be extremely challenging, as we'll be incorporating all the current efforts that the G6 is working within the ICAM roadmap into codified capability drops that will allow us to keep the momentum that the G6 established going, but also give our PMs the flexibility to enable to rapidly close ICAM gaps across the enterprise. Right now, as Colonel Banner mentioned, we're anticipating about 6 more months for this approval, so around second quarter 23. But we look forward, with that approval, we look forward to working with industry and utilizing your expertise to help solve some of our hard ICAM problems as our PMs action these requirements. Sure.
All right. If there are no questions for Andy, Kyle, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. The Enterprise Transport Modernization Capabilities Development Document consolidates, modernizes, and standardizes the transport infrastructure on all Army installations and facilities for all Army components. It will provide a dynamic network transport capability that converges all Army functional and organizational networks into a single virtualized network transport and security architecture. Legacy and non-standardized transport infrastructures on Army installations cannot provide the bandwidth and throughput required by current and rapid technology changes occurring in enterprise and tactical environments. These technologies and network improvements require a reliable transport infrastructure that allows massive data to travel across the DoDIN at a high speed. Current infrastructure modernization has remained relatively stagnant, fostering obsolescence and inefficiencies across the force. ETM has 5 capabilities that modernize the Army's transport backbone with increased data transfer rate, bandwidth, and decreased latency between the Integrated Enterprise Network and Integrated Tactical Network. The Army Enterprise Transport, or AET, formerly known as the Technical Control Facility, serves as an Installation Campus Area Network, or ICANN, gateway to the Defense Information System Network to acquire critical services and DoDIN access. It also serves as an installation gateway to enable a unified end-to-end communications network from the home station to the tactical edge. The ICANN is the local area network on an Army installation through the interconnection of facilities via telecommunications hardware that enables secured voice, data, and video communications between authorized users. Outside plant operations consist of modernizing an installation's outdoor network cable infrastructure that interconnects facilities, thus creating the backbone of the ICANN. Inside plant operations modernize the inside infrastructure of an installation's facilities to include updating telecommunications rooms by replacing legacy or obsolete switches, routers, and associated equipment, thus modernizing the bridge between the end devices and the ICANN. Wireless access points will be installed in select facilities throughout installations, allowing authorized end devices uninterrupted wireless access to the ICANN. ETM, Enterprise Transport Modernization, will facilitate a systematic plan to modernize the Army's enterprise transport infrastructure to support a more reliable and secure unified network with the capability to provide more data throughput and bandwidth necessary for rapidly enhancing technologies.
All right, thanks, Kyle. Sorry, there's a couple slides I made in here that weren't supposed to, so I'm going to breeze past that one. Okay, so hey, this is one of my favorite slides. Just look at how messy this is, how complex this is. So quick orientation. The green slides are the green like charts here within the slide are documents that we already have approved. They're not necessarily all from ACM Networks and Services, but those are the preponderance of the documents that are approved today that make up the unified network. The blue are slides that are in a pretty final stage of draft. We've got a lot of work done on those, and we anticipate getting those into staffing very soon. Those are all my documents. And then the ones in white are in fairly nascent stages to moderately mature stages of being complete. I would say this makes up 70% of the requirements that exist today that are either being developing or have been delivered on for the unified network. It is not all of them by any means. And if you'll see, it's probably a little difficult to see, but the wording within the documents themselves indicate, where those documents originated. So you've got documents from ACM EW, ACM Cyber, ACM Network and Services, ACM Tactical Radio, all within CCOE. But then you've got Mission Command, you've got Maneuver, we've got lots of intel documents on here. So the community is moving out on the unified network. But what I really want you to take away from this is just how complex this is. And so the next few slides I'm going to show you, they move pretty fast because the last couple are fairly redundant. But what I'm going to show you is our strategy when we were faced with how we kind of make this environment just a little less complex. One, for senior leaders to understand. One, for us to actually deliver on what we're trying to say we're going to do. Okay, so, when the Army Unified Network Plan, the AUNP, came out, we were faced with a bit of a challenge, because it directed us as ACMs, CDIDs, to do a lot of different things. And so it's an operational construct given to a process that isn't necessarily that operational. So how do you take something as complex as the JSIDS process, very bureaucratic, it takes a very long time to deliver on something, and then modify that to, pretty much an operational concept. Here you'll see phase 1 is set the network, phase 2 is operationalize the network, phase 3 is modernize and sustain. Sustain not necessarily as much as what I'm concerned about, but the modernization piece, I definitely am very concerned about. And so what you have here is you'll see we've taken in how the G6 has broken down the network into, I don't know of a great term for it, layers maybe, different layers, different lines of effort. So at the very top, you'll see the UNO ISICD. That's, again, my document, and that's command and control of the network. Then you'll see the common operating environment. So that COE ISICD, and if you're not familiar with what an ISICD is, it's Information Systems Initial Capabilities Development Document. And so those are constructs that are fairly new, and they do kind of allow us to get after modernization at a more rapid pace. It's a really good introduction to the JSIDS process. It's followed by, you develop something called RDPs, from those smaller documents that have generally have a lower threshold of approval for, and we can iterate on faster. And then, beyond that, you've got something called CDs, capability drops. And so even faster there. The documents tend to be larger, very much more technical in scope, but we can deliver them much more rapidly, and our approval level is much lower than any of these other documents. So the ISICD, I think, is a great improvement to the JSIDS process, and it's helping us get after modernization faster. If you look down below, these two are CDs, so we're looking at, the services and infrastructure layer and the common transport layer. Now, because these are not software, heavily software in nature, we cannot use the ISICD construct. So we're using the CDD. But what we're going to do with the CDD is we're going to use that to set the network in FY24, about a year ahead of what the AUNP calls for, and then we're going to iterate much more rapidly on annexes to deliver on those capabilities. The annexes will be smaller in scope, so that we can more quickly write them and get them approved and then iterate on modernization. what I think this strategy is going to do is it's going to force innovation. It's going to force industry to innovate faster. Your R&D programs are going to get hot and heavy because we're going to be turning out requirements so fast on things that are already existing that you're going to have to help us figure out how is it that we deliver modernization at a much faster pace. You got a question, sir? Yes, sir. Yeah, and I mean, I think you were here for my earlier warm-up speech, right? And so I was able to talk a little bit about that. And so, yeah, I wanted to make sure we hit that up front because I know you and many others that I've talked to that really spending a lot on their R&D programs, right? And so we are doing the best we can within the confines of the JSITS process to be able to iterate faster, modernize our Army faster, and really, you waste less money on R&D and get stuff out to the field. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so I'm not going to spend much time here, but what I'll say is, so IEN to ITN convergence, we could say IEN to ITN to UN convergence, but this is what we looked like probably 6 months ago, maybe a little bit what we look like today. A very, stovepipe enterprise and tactical network. Not a lot of requirements being delivered that give you that UN strategy, right? That give you that UN focus. They're very tactically or enterprise focused. Now, I'm not going to say in every case we're not going to deliver documents that are still tactical or enterprise focused. I mean, there are certain requirements that must be. But we're going to get a lot more into the business of delivering documents that are UN focused, and you'll see they span the large gamut vertically from enterprise to tactical. So I'll call your attention to the center section here, ICAM and Data Fabric, both part of UNO. And so those are truly the first 2 UN documents that have ever been delivered that span the enterprise to the tactical. The PEOs are really shaping how they're doing that because these requirements have really fed in typically to either C3T or EIS. And now they're working together a whole lot more to deliver on what these things, what's coming down the road. And it's really encouraging to see. But I don't have much more to offer you from that. I just want to show you where we're at today. Okay, where we're going tomorrow. John, how are we doing on time? Okay. So where we're going tomorrow. This is really our objective state. And so if you'll see in the center, you'll see the key documents that I have been referring to throughout this brief. UNO, COE, the Common Services Infrastructure, and the Common Transport Layer. So I show this so that you understand that that's really aligning straight down the unified network. And these documents to the right and left are going to start kind of merging, pulling closer into the middle. But I no longer have to develop big CDDs to say, hey, this is what I got to describe the tactical scenario. I got to describe the tactical gaps. I got to come up with a strategy for delivering the tactical network. And now I've got to do the same thing over here on the enterprise. I'm developing one document that does that for the entire environment. And I'll tell you that's pretty big because these CDDs they're not quick. I've got some I'm working on today that we've been working on for 5 years that aren't approved yet, right? And so I'm really trying to get after doing this faster. Okay, I'm going to skip over that. That wasn't something I wanted to show here. And one thing I want to say on this slide, just throw out that word retire, because it's really not a good way to describe what these documents are. So if you look to the left, you're going to see these documents, because they're pretty big documents. They give us pretty big programs. You're going to see them probably reoccur through the next couple slides, because they weren't built to conform to a transport layer or services or infrastructure or C2. They were built where they pull all of that into one document, and they do it like 10 different times across every document. But we're getting away from that. That's doing that just does not make sense for how we're trying to modernize. And so we're pulling all of that information, the gaps, the strategic language that went into that, the thoughts, the CBA, and we're pulling that into one document, in this case, the UNO ISICD. To the right of the UNO ISICD, which was approved in 21, you'll see the RDPs. Now, I haven't focused much on these timelines above the top, but you'll see these timelines aligned to when I think these RDPs will be approved. And so I believe before 23 even starts, we will have upper tactical tier and lower tactical tier approved, calendar year 23. The strategic RDPs and installation RDPs, we're looking at about 24 for that. And then if I want to draw your attention to ICAM and RDP, these white things out to the right-hand side, these are the capability drops, the CDs I've been talking about. And they don't have names. We didn't say what they would be because we don't know exactly what they will be yet. You're going to kind of help us figure out what they're going to be. What are you bringing to, what's the technology you're developing, and how can we incorporate this to make UNO better? And so on the bottom, though, because of where ICAM and Data Fabric are in development, and we're seeing so many machinations as this come through, and we're learning more about ICAM and Data Fabric, that what we think is we're going to need to iterate much faster on the capability drops, because the technology is going to change at a much more rapid pace. So both the frequency of delivering those capability drops and the number of capability drops we think we're going to have to deliver, are going to be more. At least that's how we perceive it to be. Now, this doesn't mean that you see here in 28, that's when modernization ends. No, this will be continual modernization of IT. So these capability drops will continue until we no longer need UNO, and maybe we're going to something else. Yes, sir. Hey, Gary. Right. Yeah. Hey, great question. And I think I've heard that from even a couple of my PM brothers before, who were initially kind of looking at this and wondering what that meant for them. So no, it doesn't. These documents do not go away. That's why I don't like the word retire, because it's really not retire. They will be legacy documents. You will not necessarily need to refer back to them in order to build off of them. So that's why I keep saying we're pulling the language and the gaps into UNO, into the ISICD. So, but it will not. It's not going to just automatically kill anything that's currently in development under those documents. Those documents can still, you can still deliver off those documents for as long as they remain valid. So this will not invalidate those. It just means we won't necessarily have to refer back to those. One of the key reasons is, if I go into an AROC or something like that, and they're asking me, hey, why are you, delivering this STS program off of a document that was created in 2009? Fair point, but maybe because we've been trying to get it through for like 5 years. But so, we want to avoid kind of that and make sure that the language that we have, it may need to change a little bit because of where we are at in modernization and the speed we need to get there. So, hey, that's really the key takeaway from this, and I will just tell you that the timeline above aligns exactly to the phases of the AUNP. And if we can achieve getting these documents, out there and approved by 28, then modernization is truly occurring, and we're going to be much closer to meeting that demand of MDO capable force in 2030 or Army of 2030. So this common transport layer, very, very similar to what you saw in UNO, and I know we're getting very close on time, so I won't spend a lot of time. There's a lot of redundancy here, but a lot of the same documents you saw before. Maybe we added in a couple more. We'll pull that into the common transport layer. Some of the midterm requirements that we're working on now, you might say, hey, it's still in draft. Why are you doing another document to accommodate for that? Well, again, this is to reduce the complexity. But those documents that we are currently developing, that these gentlemen briefed on, we will be pulling all of that into the common transport layer as well. And then if you see out to the right, so here's where you're first seeing annexes. Now, I won't say that these annexes are exactly what it is we're going to deliver. What I'm saying is, as we analyzed it, as we looked at it, and we looked at what we think we need to deliver, today that is what we in the ACM, with input from a few others, think we will be delivering in the future. But you're going to shape that. You know, when you bring stuff to us, and we know what you have. I've seen just yesterday. My boss gave me a task. He gave me a scorecard. He said you'll do it, and so I did. I saw 2 technologies yesterday that I thought were pretty fascinating, and I found application. I talked to a gentleman here this morning that is working on something that I think is going to apply to something we've got coming up in the future. And so what you bring to us and tell us that you have is going to shape what these annexes look like in the future, and we really need your input to do that. Common services infrastructure, again, very similar. We've pulled in a couple of the documents from the COE, ISICD. It's an RDP called TSI. That's tactical server infrastructure into this, because that's where the tactical and then ESI, the enterprise side of services infrastructure, will feed into what the common services looks like. And then I think I mentioned to someone earlier about the cryptographic document that we're working on. You know, hey, we got to get on pace with quantum computing and things like that. So we're getting things updated to maintain pace. And then out to the right again, you'll just see what the annexes look like. These slides we posted, here for TechNet for everybody to bring down, and I'm sure it would be worth your time to pull this down, look at the annexes, look where we think we're headed, and help us shape where you think we should be headed. And finally, last slide, common operating environment, again, is not mine. That's Mission Command COEs. But we do have a key piece of that in enterprise computing environment. Enterprise computing environment, if I didn't already cover it, is kind of going to be like the app store for the Army. We've got a lot of different efforts, factory software factory, I think, that AFCEA is doing. I think SOCOM's got an initiative. I've seen a lot of initiatives pop up about, hey, let's home grow our own applications. Okay, well, where are you going to store them at, right? And how are you going to make them available outside of your organization? Well, ECE is the environment where that can happen. And then it'll apply data standards, ensure JADC2 compliancy through being part of the COE, the Common Operating Environment. So we're pretty excited about ECE, and you can see out here where we think some of those annexes will head in the future to align to ECE. Okay, team, I'm out of time here. I think we've got maybe, like 2 or 3 minutes, John? 4 minutes? Okay, we've got 4 minutes for any questions, and they don't have to be questions, comments. You give me your feedback, tell me what you think I need to know. Yes, sir. I am having a hard time. Hey, and Blake, I think we needed to get in the mic. So. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to hand that over to Andy Lachansky, who's working on ICAM. Yeah, no, that's a good question. So, if I would go back to the discussion I had with Uno, so Uno is going to reduce the complexity. Uno is going to make, I assume you're probably a 6 or in some fashion. And I think it's going to, I know it's going to reduce the complexity. You're going to have fewer tools to deal with. And you're not going to have less equipment. I mean, every time I look, your equipment set is growing. That we want more and more and more. And so Uno is kind of an answer to that challenge of you getting more and more and more, and it getting harder and harder. And honestly, you're probably getting less and less people as every year goes by. The unified network is going to make it easier in a sense that, let's say we have something like an 82nd or 101st who wants to be what we're calling today a cloud-enabled JFE, and they want to get away from bringing a whole bunch of servers with them. Well, as we're working on our new TSI RDP, it'll be our version 3. We're looking at how we make that cloud-native, cloud hybrid, and provide that down to that level. So I envision an option where you have very minimal edge computing necessary to take with you to, a third core that wants to take a lot more data. It's going to be a matter of commanders telling us what data they must have at the edge to operate in a DIL environment versus what they can leave in the cloud. Does that answer your question? Okay. I think we've got time for maybe one more question, if there are any. Okay, team. Hey, I appreciate it. I think my ACM TR brother is about to come up here and provide a brief on tactical radios. Thank you for your time.